Some good, some bad, and some hanging on. Welcome to NHL Wraparound Short Shifts for Monday, November 24th, 2025. Vic and Neil, after another exciting hockey weekend, you were at UBS Arena twice. What'd you see?
Back-to-back home games, which is never really fun for anybody to head out to the same place 2 days in a row. Sure, it's not fun for the fans, for season ticket holders and that, but Islanders came home and did what I thought they would do the first afternoon. Tired, been on that long road trip, came back, was sort of flat in that game, and then turned around and played a Seattle team that had been in Pittsburgh the night before. And they battled that down to a shutout for both sides. Both goaltenders got a shutout, so it was obviously a very good defensive game for both sides. Islanders ended up winning it in the shootout. So Islanders, great start to their season so far, the first quarter anyway.
David Riddick over Joey Decord in that one. And speaking of shutouts, Colorado Avalanche, now 16-1-5. After consecutive whitewashes over Nashville on Saturday by a 3-0 score, Mackenzie Blackwood in that one. And in Chicago on Sunday by a 1-0 score behind Scott Wedgwood. Team has a goals against average of 2.16. And that is 0.32 better than the number 2 team, Seattle.
And one thing we should emphasize, both those games are on the road. That's Colorado in Nashville, and then Colorado in Chicago. Those are back-to-back nights, and not a goal got scored against them in 48 hours of playing.
These are two non-playoff teams, obviously, from a season ago. And you could also argue Colorado was not at their best in either game, but as long as you're airtight defensively, that doesn't matter because you only need one, as they showed.
You know, you were talking a couple of weeks ago, though, about Avalanche's defense and that they were going to have to be better defensively. What are your thoughts now after seeing since then, since when you were saying you just don't think that they were playing well enough as a group?
Correct. And, of course, at this point of the season, it's proving differently. But I did qualify it by saying once we get down towards the end of the season and into the playoffs, that's where I really need to see it turned up when you're going to be seeing the Winnipegs. You're going to see Dallas. You're going to see Vegas. You're going to see some of the iron of the NHL over the course of a series. And as we saw a year ago, they broke down badly, particularly that third period against Dallas with a 2-0 lead in Game 7. So jury's still out. But certainly a great job that they're doing to this point. How about the Minnesota Wild? On a 7-0-1 run, including 5 straight wins, consecutive shutouts over this weekend, Pittsburgh on Friday, 5-0, and then 3-0 in Winnipeg. Jesper Wallstedt, now 6-0-2, 1.94 goals against, .935 save percentage in 8 games. The Wild have scored first 12 consecutive games. That is tied for the 10th longest streak in NHL history. And they have not trailed in 8 straight games. So we had said they'd gotten off to that rough start, 3-6-3, and now have completely turned this thing around. And as I said on Friday, you're playing with the league. You're playing on your terms. And John Hines' group is certainly doing that right
And you
now.
know what's turned this whole thing around for them? The return of Matt Zuccarello.
Yeah.
Come back, and if you go and look back at when he came back into the lineup from his injury and when they started to take off, it's Matt Zuccarello that is the timing, anyways, of this resurgence. They say that he's very important to their locker room. He's a loosey-goosey guy that everybody likes and that works his tail off. He's not a very good skater. Not real good at any one thing, but pretty good at a lot of different things. Very appreciated by his coaching staff and his teammates. It's really an amazing transformation for when he was out of the lineup and came back into the lineup. This isn't one of their superstars. This isn't Matt Boldy or somebody like that coming back into the lineup. This is Matt Zuccarello. So good for him. He should still be on the Rangers today, but that's a long time ago now. He was important to them, and they let him go. It's a great story, the Minnesota Wild right now, and how they're playing.
An interesting story, and a team that you probably didn't think was going to make our good list today, the Calgary Flames. On a 3-game winning streak, remember they won 6-2 in Buffalo, came home on Saturday, had a 3-2 shootout win over the Stars, and we're going to have more on that in a little bit, but then flew to Vancouver for a game on Sunday and won 5-2. And this is after there was some talk earlier in the week that the Flames may be giving up on their season. Yes, they're still last in the Pacific. They're 15th in the West, but athletes have pride. And they don't want to be told, or they don't want to hear that their season is being thrown away. And Don Maloney had to stand up to that this week.
Yeah, he did. And I guess that's why he was trying to get what he could out of the players to make them think that he's behind them and they're not going anywhere. Obviously, they're not going to be a playoff team, the Flames, and they probably would be served well to get a very high draft pick in the coming draft. It's tough now with the 32 teams. And, you think about Calgary, they're not San Jose, they're not Chicago, they're not a team that's just completely dismantled everything and is in a total rebuild, and it's obvious to everyone, and they've gone that route. But they're sort of a tweener right now. Are they trying to get into the playoffs? Probably. But are they good enough? Probably not. So where do they land? I mean, it seems to be in today's NHL that once you decide you're not a playoff team, well, let's go for very last in the league so that we can get that one, Bedard or whoever it is that's coming up this year. Flames don't seem to be doing that. So what are they trying to do? We'll have to stay tuned because there's no chance that they're going to be in the playoffs. So I don't know actually what their goal is in this season. And I'm talking management, not players, management.
We had talked during our summer coolers that this was a club that, considering how close they were to making the playoffs last year, did nothing appreciable during the offseason. So it's not really a surprise that they're languishing this year.
Absolutely, you're right. It's not a surprise that they're languishing because they did do nothing in the offseason, and that's what we talked about in our preview. And it remains to be seen. Their coach is doing a really good job with what he's got to work with, and they've got several players that are playing knowing that probably their days are numbered in Alberta.
And that's Ryan Huska, the head coach of the Flames that you're referring to. All right, you ready for the big tease?
Sure.
Here we go with the Buffalo Sabres. You remember after they lost to those Flames 6-2 last week, Tage Thompson called out his entire club saying that we're not as good as we think we are. And they responded with back-to-back wins over the weekend, a 9-3 shellacking of the Blackhawks. Jason Zucker got back into the lineup after missing 8 games with the virus. He had a goal, 2 assists. Then they beat Carolina 4-1 on Sunday. Thompson has a goal streak now of 6 straight games. So the Sabres escaped the Atlantic cellar, but they're still 8th in the East wild card. And this is one of these teases that Buffalo gives you. They give you that little glimmer that, all right, we might be getting this thing back together again. So I did want to acknowledge that the Sabres did rebound from the big loss to Calgary, but they still got a long way to go.
Oh, my God. Absolutely. I mean, they're light years from escaping a 15th straight year without the playoffs. So, yeah, they have a long way to go. I had to laugh at Tage Thompson's quote, if it's accurate, that said, we've got to face it. We may not be as good as we think we are. Well, have you looked at the standings? How good do you think you are? You're good if you're in the ECHL, but you're not good in the NHL.
Oof. Tough room. How about the Flyers scoring 3 goals in a team record 26 seconds on Saturday as they beat the Devils on Bernie Parent Tribute Night Matvei Vichkov scored the first of those 3 goals. Tyson Forster the other 2. So the Flyers playing well under Rick Tocchet. And, oh, by the way, the Devils, 1-3 since Jack Hughes went out with finger surgery.
And that doesn't surprise you, though, right? That we know how big a piece Jack Hughes is to that team. Last year when he was hurt, they stumbled along, and he is really a huge cog on that team. So the Flyers, surprising some people in that maybe they're better than people thought. So they're right there. They're right in the playoff mix at this point.
I want to give a shout out to a player who I think we did last week also, but his play continues to impress, and that's Morgan Geeking. So tell me that this guy is not the best bargain in the NHL, because I know how you look at these salaries and you roll your eyes at a lot of them. Geeky is tied with Nathan McKinnon for the league lead with 17 goals. Last season, he scored 1 goal in his first 18 games and didn't score his 17th until February the 8th. He signed a 6-year, $5.5 million AAV deal to stay with the Bruins. And he has scored 5 goals while the Bruins have been on their road trip in California, even though the Bruins lost 2 out of these 3 games. But what I want to point out is also the way that he is scoring, because he scored 2 goals on deflections in Anaheim. In LA on Friday, scored on a slap shot, a 12-6 clapper, and then a wrist shot from the top of the circle in overtime to win that game, and then out-finessed defender Sunday in San Jose. So he is really proving his diversity as an offensive force, and for a team that we know, it's David Pastrnak and everybody else. Thank goodness, for the Bruins' sake, that Geeky is there.
Don Sweeney takes a lot of heat and a lot of it deservingly, but he should be getting accolades for this signing of Geeky. He must have seen something, and the organization saw something that perhaps the rest of us didn't see. But I got a question for you. What's a 12-6 clapper?
That's when you take a slap shot and your stick goes all the way to 12 o'clock, and then you hammer down. That's 12-6 clapper.
In what book did you find that?
Is
that a high school term? Material. Is that high school hockey term?
No. I'm much older than high school. You know that.
I've been around the NHL a long time, but I've never heard a 12-6 clapper.
Just go look at the goal.
I'm sure the goal is what you say it is, but that term, a 12-6 clapper, and you're supposed to know what that means? Anyway, we regress. Good signing by the Bruins of keeping Morgan Geeky. One of the bright things you're seeing with the Boston Bruins this year. And as you said, tied with McKinnon for the league lead in 17 goals. Really amazing.
You know what else that game had? That San Jose Bruins game?
What?
The 2 best names in the NHL. Shakir Mukhamadullin for the Sharks and Marat Nustadinov for the Bruins. So you get triple word score on either of those, you're cleaning up.
Yeah, you are. I mean, I'd hate to be the play-by-play guy or the color guy when those 2 teams play. Geez, I couldn't even say Dustin Byfuglien when I first did a game with him in it.
That's why I'm handling these names, so I can study beforehand, not drop them in your lap. All right, let's move over to the bad. 2 original 6s. The Maple Leafs won 5-2 in their last 8 after a 5-2 loss in Montreal on Saturday. The Canadiens had come into that game 1-4-3 in their last 8. Matthew Knies and Auston Matthews remain out. But the more disturbing part here, the Leafs were literally non-competitive for the first 40 minutes of this game. Joseph Woll got chased at 4-0. This one just stunk from a Toronto standpoint.
Oh, and you're playing against your national rival. I mean, that's the thing, too, that when you see a game like that, this is supposed to be like the Flames and the Oilers, the Islanders and the Rangers. I mean, this is their rival, the Montreal Canadiens. And for you to go into Montreal in the Bell Center and play that poorly. Again, I've been saying this on these shows. I'll say it again. This again shows that there's something wrong in the room in Toronto. What do I mean by that? I don't know what's wrong in the room in Toronto, but I do know there's something wrong in the room in Toronto, because teams that come out that have this much talent and play that flat, there's a problem in the overall atmosphere within the room.
Here's the one upside for Toronto, and it kind of speaks to the mediocrity of the Atlantic Division, that they are in last place in the conference. But they're only 6 points out of first in the Atlantic.
The whole conference is crazy how close the whole thing is.
Tell you what else was crazy. The Jackeyes, with Yvon Cournoyer in attendance, one of the great finesse players in the history of the NHL. The Jackeyes versus the Dakotas in the third period for a little bit of a sideshow. Florian Jackeye was called up, and he fought Dakota Mermis in the third period, and then Arbor got a misconduct at the end of the game with Dakota Joshua. So, in addition to having your heads handed to you, you got these two guys that are pounding at the end of the game and literally laughing at the Leafs.
It was a bad night for Toronto, and I just keep wondering what is going to happen. Something's got to happen in Toronto. As we said, something's got to happen in other places too, where if you don't produce in these big markets, you know something's coming down the pike. So I don't know what it's going to be in Toronto, but Brad Treliving and Craig Berube, and above them, Keith Pelly, the new hockey expert that they hired to run all the sports teams. He's apparently also a basketball expert and a soccer team expert. Having spent all those years doing TV production, you understand why he would be an expert in those things. We'll see what they all do.
You know, I did TV production.
Yeah, but you're not running the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Toronto Raptors, and the Toronto football team.
Fine point. You did mention big markets, did you not?
Yes.
The New York Rangers finish an 0-3 Mountain Time Zone road trip, losing 3-2 to Utah on Saturday. They were outshot 95-60 in the games in Vegas, Colorado, and Utah. And something that has been symbolic about their defensive play this season was clearly evident in the Saturday loss to Utah. First goal is a shoot-in. Vinny Trocheck turns the puck over. J.J. Peterka gets in behind the defense to tap one in. Scott Morrow, turnover. Clayton Keller scores. And then on the winning goal, Matthew Robertson, kind of a mindless clearing attempt under a little bit of duress, but he tapped the puck right out to the top of the right wing circle, where Nick DeSimone scored the winning goal. And for a club like this, Neil, that has gotten outstanding goaltending, particularly by Jonathan Quick, but very good goaltending from Igor Shesterkin also. This is not the kind of team with their offense or lack thereof that can outscore their mistakes.
No. If they're making mistakes like that, and as you say, have no offensive thrust to make up for them, that's a losing combination, and thus they are losing.
Jonathan Quick reported early Monday that he is out now with a lower body injury. Dylan Garand has been called up from Hartford of the AHL. And JT Miller, out for a second consecutive game on Monday against St. Louis. He suffered an upper body injury Thursday in Colorado. The Rangers last in the Metro and ninth in the wild card, only ahead of the aforementioned Toronto Maple Leafs. So as much as there's bad stuff in the water in Toronto, there's the equal sewage in New York.
Oh, absolutely. But it's not as surprising to me in New York as it is in Toronto, because I didn't see it coming in Toronto. They lost Mitch Marner, and they had plenty of good players to make up for that. Yeah. in New York, you've seen this thing self-imploding for a while now. They're not even a skeleton of what they were this time last year, and much less what they were 2 seasons ago. So they have completely dismantled the President's Trophy team, a contending team, down to, as you just said, second last in the Eastern Conference.
They have somewhat evened out on the road during the course of this road trip after that 9-1-1 start. I would have to think that at some point they will improve at home. But whether it's going to be enough to get themselves into the bubble and into a playoff spot, I just don't see it with this lack of offense here.
The big thing about the Rangers is that they've got to do something about their home record. They're 1-7-1 at home. But we're just going to have to see. I mean, they're not a good team at this point in the season.
Oh, they're not. I'll tell you something else that wasn't good. Mikko Rantanen. For the second time in 3 games, he is ejected for a boarding major. This time in Calgary on Saturday, he hit Matt Coronado of the Flames just after coming out of the penalty box for a slashing penalty. He could see Coronado's numbers, ran him from behind. Coronado went off the ice, eventually did return with his nose stitched up. Rantanen is now suspended for Tuesday's game in Edmonton. But further to that, last week, he hit Alexander Romanov of the New York Islanders from behind. Romanov is now out 5 to 6 months, expected to undergo shoulder surgery. Rantanen was not suspended for that. There was some talk that maybe Scott Mayfield's skate may have clipped Rantanen and that forced him into Romanov. I don't buy it. And apparently the league closed the door on that. But given now that we know Romanov's going to be out 5 to 6 months and Rantanen was ejected for the second time in 3 games, should the suspension been more than that mandatory 1 game for having 2 game misconducts within a 41-game stretch?
Well, we can't even be sure that it won't be. I mean, the 1 game is automatic. That goes on without them even looking at it. So, yes, definitely it should be more than just the mandatory 1 game, I believe. I haven't taken a close enough look at him in that game in Dallas when he hit Romanov from behind. You know, I think human nature is that, well, it's Rantanen. He's not that type of player. Now, if that had been Brad Marchand that hit Romanov from behind like that, or if that had been Tom Wilson, I mean, there would have been, well, here he goes again. Because it was Rantanen, it's human nature to sort of say, well, your first instinct isn't that he would do that on purpose. So, but then he goes out and does it again 2 games later. So I think you got to think, like, wait a minute, this guy might be doing this on purpose.
And if the punishment is to be a deterrent, it's certainly 1 game's not going to get it there.
No, it's not. But, again, why would Rantanen be doing this stuff? Is there something, going wrong at home or going wrong somewhere seriously to make him act out of character?
You'd mentioned Tom Wilson, and we're going to transition to the Hanger Honors, where the Tampa Bay Lightning hung on for a 5-3 win in Washington on Saturday. The Lightning led 4-1 after the first period. Nikita Kucherov had a goal and 2 assists before leaving early in the second period on a hit by Wilson, who, by the way, had knocked the Canadiens' Jake Evans out of the game on Thursday. Brayden Point also left that game early in the third. Brendan Hagel had 2 goals and 2 assists to pick up the load there. The Caps made that game 4-3 and had a 5-on-3 power play for over a minute in the third, but could not draw even. Anthony Cirelli, who just returned to the lineup, had an insurance goal. But probably very significant here is, in addition to Kucherov and Point, they were also missing Victor Hedman, who is now on LTIR with an undisclosed injury. He's missed the last 6 games. he can come back on December 4th. And Ryan McDonough is also out. So this is one of these things that doesn't necessarily make the headlines. But you got to give John Cooper a lot of credit for being able to navigate his team through this.
He's got a number of players that are out and that will stay out in Monday's games, and we'll go through that when you hit those updates. But yeah, John Cooper's a great coach. He finds a way to get it done. He's got some great talent as well. Let's give Cooper his credit. He has really managed to keep them very, very competitive during some trying times.
The Edmonton Oilers had some trying times during their 7-game road trip, but wind up finishing it 3-3-1. They went 6-3. Stanley Cup Finals rematch over Florida. The Oilers chased Sergei Bobrovsky at 4-1 early in the second period. Panthers got to within 4-3. Oilers managed to hang on. But what I saw encouraging here, Neil, was that the Oilers had 15 scoring points in this game, but only one each by Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And you know how we've gotten on Evan Bouchard? He, along with Matthias Ekholm, had 3 points, and both of them were a +5 in this one. So, if nothing else, you and I are fair.
In this game, I wouldn't call him Bonehead Bouchard like I have in other games.
Yes, you have.
That's some encouraging news and encouraging game for the Edmonton Oilers while they head home from their road trip.
They'll play 6 out of their next 7 at home, starting with Tuesday against Dallas. And that will be the lone NHL game on Tuesday evening. So any injuries from your end before I get into my half dozen?
Well, I got a lot of news. Braden Point will be out tonight for the aforementioned Tampa Bay Lightning. I wanted to mention that yesterday's Carolina loss in Buffalo came with the absence of their captain, Jordan Staal, who was sick. And that is one of the things we hadn't mentioned in the show.
Did you pick Carolina in that game? Is that why this is being
Are you
mentioned?
interrupting me again?
Well, yeah. So go ahead.
For the New Jersey Devils, Cody Glass is in. For the Rangers, Vincent Trocheck is a game-time decision for them. And as you mentioned earlier, Jonathan Quick is out as the backup. Now, yes, I did take Carolina yesterday.
All right, here's my injury list. Roman Josi returned for the Predators. 3-0 loss to Colorado. Missed 12 games with an upper body injury sustained on October 23rd. More woes for the Maple Leafs. Jake McCabe left Saturday's loss in Montreal after taking a puck to the face in the second period. Neil Pionk, defenseman for the Winnipeg Jets, left with an upper body injury trying to deliver a hit on the first shift of the game in Sunday's loss against Minnesota. He is listed as day-to-day. Some longer-term injuries. J.G. Pageau of the New York Islanders out week to week with an upper body injury. This kind of caught the team by surprise because he had played 15 minutes and 58 seconds and was actually on the ice at the end of the game against St. Louis on Saturday. Vinny Hinostroza, forward for the Minnesota Wild, going to be out a while, according to head coach John Hines. He was hit along the end boards by Ryan Graves, fell backwards, and his leg appeared to get caught under him. And Samuel Hanzek, forward for the Calgary Flames, expected to be out 6 months following upper body surgery. Remember, he collided with Michael Backlund, Flames captain, November 15th, in a shootout loss against Winnipeg.
Quick update on Hinostroza, considered week to week by the Wild. That's a little bit better definition than going to be out a while, which is what John Hines had said and you had repeated. So week to week for the Wild.
That's why I have you. Live, local, and late breaking. 2 waiver wire pieces of news here. Alexander Georgiev was placed on waivers by the Sabres for the purpose of terminating his contract. He is expected to sign, or already has signed, with Moscow Spartak, KHL. Played parts of 5 seasons with the Rangers, got traded to Colorado in 2022, and traded to San Jose. Signed as a free agent by the Sabres on September 11th of this year, but never played a game in Buffalo. He was 4th on the depth chart, behind PekkaLuukkonen, Alex Lyon, and Colton Ellis, who's played very well for the Sabres. So essentially, Georgiev just getting squeezed out.
Yeah, he has really fallen since he was there in New York with Shesterkin and was so highly thought of, and then a good trade to Colorado where he played pretty well in his first year there, but then everything has really fallen off for Alexander Georgiev.
Also, Alexander Texier, waived by the St. Louis Blues and was signed by the Montreal Canadiens Sunday, so they need help down the middle with Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook already out. Jake Evans, by the way, who we spoke about a few moments ago, and he was knocked out of a game that the Canadiens played against Washington last week. He was able to play against the Maple Leafs. But with Dach and Newhook out, this is a good signing by GM Ken Hughes.
It's interesting because last year, Doug Armstrong, the general manager of St. Louis, put Brandon Saad, did the same thing, extinguished his contract and so that he could go and sign with the Vegas Golden Knights. He's still there, still productive for the Golden Knights. But the reason that he did that with Brandon Saad back then was to give Texier more ice time and get him into the lineup more often so that they could see what they had. So I guess after all that, it really didn't work out for the Blues.
And perhaps it does for the Canadiens. So today is November the 24th, and I always acknowledge this anniversary because it was 57 years ago today that I went to my first NHL game.
Wow. I thought you were going to say something about the civil rights movement or, Martin Luther King or
Vietnam
something.
War.
Yeah, something that was more meaningful. But this is when you went to your first NHL game. Is the government considering this being a federal holiday?
It should. Because it was the Rangers against the defunct Oakland Seals. They were called Oakland that particular night. Ed Giacomin and Charlie Hodge were in goal. Rod Gilbert had the winning goal in the second period. And I also saw a penalty shot in my very first game. I think I said when we started our franchise, probably over a year and a half ago, I had made mention of this. So I'm surprised you haven't remembered this.
Well, I forgot. I marked it on my calendar, but I'd forgotten to look at it this morning.
By the way, 13 years later, same day, Madison Square Garden, I saw Earth, Wind & Fire for the first time out of my 18 times having seen them live.
Wow. I never got to see them once live, but I would love to have. I loved Earth, Wind & Fire.
I may have to take you one day. Our website is NHLWraparound.com. Patrick Hoffman's latest is on JT Miller and him just being really out of sorts in New York as their new captain. And this is before his injury took place in Colorado. We also have Neil's Nuggets, and perhaps this week he will pen a piece on the significance of goal differential around American Thanksgiving. And Smith's Picks. What do you got to say for yourself here?
Well, last night wasn't a great night for me, but it wasn't all that bad either. 2-3 last night, but coming off of a really good run. So we'll see for tonight.
But that's how you've made such great ground, is that when you win, you're 3 over 500, and when you lose, you're 1 below.
It's interesting when you do this and you see what your numbers are and how many games you lose in overtime and shootout, but you still get a point, but you lost. And it goes back to our conversation about the NHL. I mean, a team goes off the ice having clearly won, and a team goes off the ice not having clearly lost. It's crazy.
But it is doing something for your winning percentage.
Yeah, it is. Yes. Although that and a subway token, and we'll take a ride on the subway.
Deal. Maybe to an Earth, Wind, and Fire concert.
Yeah, you never know.
All right. On Tuesday at midnight, we will be dropping the latest in our celebrity series. We had a discussion last week with three-time Super Bowl winning kicker for the New England Patriots, Stephen Gostkowski. This was a terrific conversation that we had, and I thought one of the most revealing parts was really towards the end when you discussed with Stephen the trials and tribulations of departing pro football and settling back into what we call normal life.
It's tough for all people in professional sports. I would think in professional entertainment might even be the better word, to go from being that entertainer or part of that into a 9-to-5 type lifestyle, 5 working days, 2 days on the weekend. You know, the way that American life has sort of been set out for decades now, you go from that robotic lifestyle of everyday professional sports, and you have to quickly just settle now into normal life after decades of not having done that. I found that very interesting. I find the whole subject very revealing.
NHL Wraparound returns on Wednesday, where we'll be speaking with New York Islanders TV analyst Cal Clutterbuck about recent surge by the Isles on the road. It's split over the course of the weekend. But overall, New York keeping themselves right in the bubble in a quest to return to the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, on behalf of Neil, I'm Vic, and enjoy the hockey Monday and Tuesday.